Who's this person right here? Oh,
Eden or it out.
we're live. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for braving the elements out there tonight. And I made the comment as I saw people coming in, oh, everybody's all bundled up. So at least it's nice and toasty in here. We appreciate that. Robin, do we have any introductions?
Madam Chair, I'm going to introduce our commission liaison, Helfrey, but she is not present with us, so we'll wait.
May we have roll call then, please?
Commissioner Hensick,
Present.
Chair Stevens.
Present.
Slaughter is not with us. Vice Chair Buckert is not with us. Commissioner Quarterman. Present. Alternate Bertolo is not with us. Alternate Larson. As noted, our commission liaison is not with us. Our council member liaison Marshall.
Present.
Council member liaison Randall. Advisor Scott. Wildwood Historical Society liaison.
Oh, hello. Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Ragland is not with us, and Commissioner Board. Here. All right, we do have quorum.
Thank you very much. It's always very important that we get quorum so we can conduct our business at hand. And it looks like we have a lot of business at hand tonight. And it's exciting. So we hope that anyone who is watching us on Zoom comes in and out. We welcome anyone who watches. And then those of you who come on board later and see our recordings, we are so happy that you can do that and that you have such an interest in our commission because we feel we're very important. Could we stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? Debbie, would you lead us this evening?
Allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We have someone coming in, Robin.
And I'll just note for the record that we have Commissioner Red Herman now. Except please pronounce your last name because I understand I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
My last name is Raghu Brahman. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, moving now to the approval of the minutes of our December 5th commission meeting. Did anyone see any corrections that need to be made or additions? We didn't find anything, so we will approve them by general consent. The January 9th minutes from our special meeting. Anyone find anything there? Then we will approve those by general consent. Thank you. Is there any public comment?
Chair Stevens, I do not have speaker cards, but we do have one attendee online.
Okay,
So if that attendee would like to make comment at this time, please use the raise hand feature. Madam Chair, I don't see it.
okay. Thank you. News and updates from Wildwood Historical Society.
Well, considering we hibernate in January and February, we really don't have any news other than I would suggest you don't try going down there. One of our members was down there earlier this week, and apparently the parking and everything looks like a skating rink. So I would suggest don't go down there and get out of your car.
Well, thank you. We'll take that advice. Moving on to old business. Number 1 is the Essen Log Cabin update.
Madam Chair, members of this commission, As you are aware, we are currently out to bid for our Essen Log Cabin reconstruction project. And part of that process has been the city has hosted 2 pre-bid meetings from which some of our commissioners were present. From those pre-bid meetings, I'm happy to report that we did have 5 attendees and potential bidders arrive, including Charette Creek Excavating, Aspire Construction Services, Heritage Restorations, Wolf Building Companies, and Bombshell Construction. At least 2 of these firms, if not maybe even a third one, have demonstrated experience in historic log cabin restoration. So we are very excited to see what comes back from that process. The next step, we do have a closing date, Tuesday, January 28th. That's when those bids will be read aloud. And then we have a special meeting of this commission scheduled for that Friday, the 31st at 3 p.m. that afternoon. So if I may request a show of hands of who is planning to participate in that special meeting on the 31st, because we will need a quorum in order to move forward. Okay, so I have at least 4 plus 5.
I don't count.
Yep, plus 1. 4 plus 1 is how I'll think about it. But we certainly appreciate your expertise.
Thank you.
As our advisor. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. That concludes my update pertaining to the Essen Log Cabin project. We're just excited to proceed. If you have any questions at this time, the department is happy to answer them.
Okay, number 2 is the Historic Preservation Plan.
All right, Madam Chair, members of this commission, as you are aware, pretty soon after the new year, we had another special meeting of this commission to review RFQ responses. We held that meeting at in the community room, and after receiving 4 responses, we were able to weed it down to 3. And our top picks at that time were MIG, MKSK, and Shockey. So those firms were contacted thereafter, and we scheduled interviews with each of them that following Friday. At those interviews, we had an ad hoc committee representing the Department of Planning and this commission. Chair Stevens attended, Advisor Scott, alternate Bertolo, and myself. And so we were able to interview all 3 teams. From that committee discussion, we did select our top 2 favorites, and we have ordered those for your consideration this evening. The committee's preferred team was MIG. MIG is a national firm. They do have, as the project manager, Ms. Marcia Boyles, who is a Wildwood native. Ms. Boyles attended Wildwood Middle School and Eureka High School, and her parents still reside in Wildwood to this day in Lake Chesterfield. Their presentation blew us away pretty much from the get-go because the first 5 minutes of it was this broad overview of Wildwood history, but with a depth of understanding that I think could only come from reading the Wildwood history book, which our Wildwood native held up as a prop during the interview. But that wasn't all that impressed our committee. Their overall presentation did communicate national best practices. They have a pretty large team compared to the other responders in terms of specialties that they're able to pull from. We thought that was a plus. The 2 interviewees on the call with us are going to be more of our regular contact, but we did identify that high level of experience and specialization as a plus. I would say that the primary team members do bring an incredible amount of experience to the project, both on the planning and implementation side. Additionally, the team has experience working with the National Park Service, which we feel is relevant given that we are presently partnering with the National Park Service with the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom projects. The heart of MIG is engagement. That was what the firm was founded upon, and that was evident in our discussion with them. Rather than having a canned slew of workshops and engagements like several of the other firms did, they were able to discuss more tailored approaches, like using youth as ambassadors to reach harder to reach segments of our community and get them involved in our planning effort. So I felt like that stood out in that they were able to communicate a more tailored approach versus the standard one size fits all. Obviously, the one detractor here is the fact that MIG is not local, but our team, or the interview team, felt that Ms. Boyle's ties to the area could potentially overcome that. She hinted that she comes here quite often and stays with her parents in Wildwood. So we think that she'll be here more often than you would anticipate from a national firm. Finally, just, as an etiquette thing, as a bonus point, MIG was the firm that set up the call with the department prior to responding to the RFQ. And they did follow up with a very nice thank you email within a few hours after the interview with their presentation slides, which we thought was really classy of them. However, one shocker as part of the interview process was that Shockey actually blew us away as well. So they moved from our third choice to our second choice, and actually a pretty solid second choice. We were very impressed with them. We really enjoyed Jeffrey Williams' presentation, who is identified as the project manager for Shockey. Mr. Williams has a national level of experience in historic preservation, having spent most of his career in New York City. He's also been the director of planning, I believe, for Kansas City. And Chair Stevens and I even attended a presentation of his when we attended the American Planning Association conference in October of 2023. And he was then giving a presentation on his African American Trail project, actually. We were very impressed. Sheila Shockey, the owner, and I think she's going to be part of the team as well, and Ellen Rotchikovo. I'm sorry, I apologize. I should have practiced her name, had both been highly involved in the City of Independence Historic Preservation Plan effort, so they relieved our concerns. In fact, Ms. Rotchikob authored portions of that plan. And she's also developed plans for surrounding communities, including Crestwood, Brentwood, and Rock Hill. So we felt there was solid regional experience and understanding of the overall St. Louis area context. They also emphasized heavily tailored community engagement. They see that really as the goal of the plan more than anything else. They discussed strategies such as crowdsourcing story maps from the community where they can share their stories associated with certain landmarks in the community. And that's something that Mr. Williams has actually implemented in Kansas City. And they also talked about using visual preference surveys as a way of feeling out what residents actually want certain areas of character to look like. Obviously, they're our most local firm, and it was discussed that if not selected for our historic preservation plan effort, the committee would endorse potentially Shockey Consulting as a firm to consider for the African American Heritage Trail project once we get going with it. MKSK was solidly the committee's third choice, so I didn't bullet point too much with them. We just moved forward MIG and Shockey. Andrew Dial, our grants manager for SHPO, has reviewed all of these firms and endorsed them. They are qualified and meet all the needs of the state, so that's good. So tonight, the commission is respectfully requested to discuss these top two firms and select one for recommendation to City Council so we can move forward.
Well, I would just like to add that thank you, Steve, for the thoughtful thoughts you put into your email to Robin. I mean, it just hit everything. And it lays it out so that we can really get a good idea of things. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
well,
Very professional.
glad to do that. I had to bring my thoughts together to myself. If I can add one thing, I was extremely impressed by MIG's project manager, Marcia Royal, and her intelligence or just her way of communicating. I think it would be very enjoyable to be working with her. I would look forward to that, of working with her on this. So I think that's the key. I just hope that she will be here enough. Denver is not that far away. I have family out there and they seem to drive back and forth all the time, but I agree with MIG.
Anyone else with comments or questions? This is the time to express them.
I like the fact that she has a social and a historical connection with the area with MIG. And I agree, if she's coming back to see her family that's here, then I don't think that would be a problem with having a relationship with that company.
Anything else?
If I may. Just to piggyback on that, I feel that longtime locals in Wildwood will respond well to a Wildwood native in terms of this project as she's going out and engaging the community. I know when I first started as a planner with the city, the first question I got asked generally when I was interacting, especially with the Wildwood Historical Society collaborators, was, do you live in Wildwood? What are your ties to Wildwood? So I do feel like people will respond well to that in terms of the fact that she's from here.
We do need to make a decision. Is anyone willing to make a motion? Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion about this? Yeah, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, thank you. Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, it's MIG.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is, I'm sorry, Rob, I'll just butcher it. Partner Park updates.
Park. Madam Chair and members of the commission, department felt appropriate to kind of give you an update on this particular park property. As is described in the memorandum, many of you are part of the ad hoc group that is doing the necessary work to create the master plan for the park's future utilization. Those members include our chair, former member Dan Roughton, our advisor Steve Scott, and our youth member Raghu Raman. And so we appreciate you taking on an additional task, given all the other things that you do in your everyday lives. The memorandum really focuses on one thing, and that was our site visit, which occurred on Saturday, January 4th. We were fortunate enough to beat the snowstorm, and it was, for all intents and purposes, about a perfect winter stay to be out on 27 acres of enjoyable area. The group walked the entire site. We visited all of the major features, and that's principally the structures, the water features, and then the two large meadow areas. As we were there, concerns were raised about the stability of the structures. Two of them concerns are well-founded. They've collapsed on each other. And a third is okay. And then the largest of them, the bank building, was the one we spent most of our time discussing. There was, I think, a thought on many of the participants' part that the bank building actually wasn't as structurally sound as I had hoped, that being me, and that we probably shouldn't be inside of it. Well, the direction that the department received was to engage a structural engineer and investigate the bank building. That has already occurred, and the structural engineer, as I forwarded to you, the members of the ad hoc group, basically said, it's bad and you should secure it so nobody gets in it. And so that all has occurred. For the most part, the remainder of the structures, the structural engineer commented that they too probably weren't worth the effort to save, and they too had structural defects. So the news regarding the structures, a key component of historic preservation, was not positive. At least the department isn't ready to throw in the towel yet, but just to update you. Also, when we were out there, we talked about two other studies that need to be completed. The first is a site distance analysis of the current access point. So if we do open it to public use and increase activity, we can make sure that people can get into and out of the site safely. And that is underway as well with our consultant, Harrisbeck, a gentleman named Ken Keitel. And then finally, we all noticed that the dam that forms the nice water feature has a number of trees growing on it and other vegetation. The causeway has bypassed its natural meander, and there is some erosion downstream from the dam. So we are looking at an analysis of that feature, dam, causeway, and drainage area in the future. That has not been begun. And so from the perspective of the ad hoc group, it was a beneficial visit. I think the enthusiasm level was higher than when we arrived because it is just really a beautiful site that offers a lot of opportunities. However, on the downside, looks like, at least from the structure standpoint, there'd be maybe a little bit more there than we can handle. But we'll keep you informed as we move forward, and any decision to remove any structure would begin here. If there are any questions, Madam Chair, of you or the commission members, the department would be glad to answer them at this time. And any of you that attended, I would welcome any comments or feelings you have as well. Thank you.
Any comments or questions from anyone? Rob?
I have a couple comments. Yeah, the building situation, truly disappointing, but not at all surprising. That's what everybody sort of dreaded hearing. And it's we have a professional opinion. Now, I do think the chicken coop that was behind the house, I think it's more solid than those other buildings because it's sat up. It's on concrete pilings. And so if we want to preserve something, maybe we can do something with that. It's a small building and it's not useful for anything per se, but at least it would sort of reflect the fact that this was a homestead, and maybe that's the best we can do. And the dam and causeway are going to be costly enough, I fear, without trying to rebuild the bank barn. Although if we do any restroom facility or something like that, maybe we can use that site and make it, sort of make it at least echo the structure, the structure of that bank barn. So, but yeah, everybody's excited about it, and it was a great visit. So thanks for everybody that came.
Well, and Madam Chair, if I may, I think it's incumbent on the city as well as this ad hoc group to recognize that this shows hope that the structures could be saved. So I think from the department's perspective, if the chicken coop ends up being the most structurally sound and there's a risk of it being lost, the Department of Planning staff will chain itself to the building or that bulldozer. If there are no other questions, I appreciate it. And again, to the members of the commission that have stepped in and helped, we really do appreciate it. We were struggling to get people interested to participate. And I think what we're finding is meeting at Old Pond School, the site itself and the opportunities it presents. It's just a nice project to be a part of. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may.
Yeah.
Looking at the photographs, it seems that there seem to be some timbers in there that would still be of use, either there or someplace else, such as the Essen log cabin, that somehow they could be milled or something, but there did seem to be some, I agree with it. The building's not sound, but there may be some timbers that have not deteriorated that would be of use, and to try to salvage those.
Well, no pun intended, but historically, we have been pack rats when we've been in the position at a demolition where the property owner says, I don't want it, it's going in a dumpster. So if you were ever, and you probably have gone out to Glenn Gailey's yard, we have all kinds of stuff out there that we've preserved over the years.
Yeah.
That when the opportunity presents itself, whether it's for the Historical Society, one of our property owners with a historical asset, or ourselves, we put it to good use. So thank you for reinforcing what we've done in the past and will continue to do in the future.
It's a very good idea. Just you don't give the good stuff away.
Not at all.
We don't mind you being pack rats.
Mm.
We thank you for that. Okay, the next item is the open house planning. Robin.
Right, Madam Chair, members of this commission, as you are aware, over the last year or so, we've been working with our consultant from the Preservation Research Office, Michael Allen, to inventory a number of buildings built between 1948 and 1950, 43 of them in total. He concluded that project in December of last year, and we reviewed the report. The next step is to hold a historic preservation open house for the benefit of these newly inducted property owners into our historic preservation family. As you know, originally I had hoped to reach out to maybe all of our historic property owners, but that proved to be a difficult feat, largely in finding a space large enough to hold them all. So we just invited the 43 families or property rental companies or whoever owns these properties. But we also invited city council members. Obviously, every member of this commission is encouraged to attend. We invited the St. Louis County Buildings Commission, and our St. Louis County historian, Gwen Hinman, is going to come present. And Mr. Allen is going to attend. So we'll have some decent people here. I have finalized preparations for the hot chocolate bar. Yes. Oh, sorry, and our Wildwood Historical. Well, I already feel like you're part of our commission at this point, so you do have to talk. You're on my list. But yes, so we have finalized preparations for the hot cocoa bar. I've ordered really cute supplies off of Amazon, and we're using cacao chocolate for the supplier of the hot chocolate. They have 6 different varieties: Mexican, mint, bittersweet, milk, semi-sweet. It sounds great. They're in cute little boxes with ribbons. So I think it'll be a nice feature. We've got lots of presenters lined up, so it'll be hopefully a nice presentation that's pretty fast paced with lots of different faces. We have our Wildwood Historical Society presentation. Our 2 youth members have volunteered to give a presentation about the commission's youth programs and activities. So I'm very excited for that. As noted, we do have the St. Louis County historian presenting about the county resources and programs. So that'll actually be a good benefit to this commission as well, because we haven't really connected with them too often. Michael Allen will be presenting on his survey findings. And then I'll be presenting on the Wildwood Historic Register program and the historic preservation planning effort and some of our programs and activities that are currently happening. Other thoughts I had is I'll have some history books down here for sale in the event that some families want to purchase one. We'll have our usual giveaways and handouts. And I'll make sure to have the community stickers ready, as well as the community map that we developed last year. So that they can, if they don't already know, which they might because they're historic building owners, we can make sure that they know what community they're a part of. Other than that, I'm hoping that we'll leave some time for that mixing and mingling. We just get to connect with Wildwood residents and form relationships. So at this time, I'll open it up to your feedback and we'll go from there.
Do you know what your RSVPs are for those new 40 some odd homes?
I have one RSVP so far. I mean, it sounds like the whole family's coming, so that's a plus. I don't know. I'm hoping others will just show up, or maybe I'll get some RSVPs early next week.
Yeah, people are bad with RSVP. And what about having Route 66 t-shirts for sale that day too, or having them as giveaway items?
I can bring those down because if we're selling history books, there's no reason we can't sell our Route 66 t-shirts as well.
No, it'll be a nice event.
And I don't know if we should give them a special discount on the history book as well. Maybe something akin to the discount we had at Celebrate Wildwood.
Robin, will Mr. Allen be there or will it be virtual on his presentation?
Mr. Allen will be virtual.
Okay.
He had hoped to attend in person, but I don't think it didn't work out with his schedule. He was only going to be in town for a few days. I was hoping to get some historic property owners involved, but unfortunately I reached out to a handful and I haven't really received back any responses. So maybe I'll have some last minute takers. Otherwise, Mr. Scott, you will largely be representing our historic register.
Okay.
With your new addition. Okay. Oh, and Chair Stevens has offered to be the master of ceremonies because she is so good at that.
I don't have to talk as much. Okay, the proofs for the historic plaques.
All right, Madam Chair, members of this commission, as you may recall, at our last meeting, we did talk about specific language that we wanted to include on these historic plaques for 2 new landmarks in the city of Wildwood. I have since approached Arch Engraving and they have produced 2 proofs. I also went and reviewed the other historic plaques per direction from this commission because we were concerned about whether or not it would be appropriate to carry forward the C period, representing circa or the estimated date of the building's establishment. While I didn't see any other historic plaques that had that abbreviation, our historic markers do use it quite often. So I felt that it would be appropriate in this case as well. So I've given an example to you with Fox Creek in your packets this evening, and you have the proof. At this time, I respectfully request either comments and feedback from you regarding our proofs, or if you approve of them, authorizing us to go forward along with that C period abbreviation.
Any comments or questions? One of them's going on your house there, Dave. Any comment?
No, I think, well, if only thing I would say is the I'm not trying to be selfish with it, but the identification of the building maybe should be a little bigger, a little heavier. That looks a little light compared to the other
Okay.
Texas on the screen.
Does it need the address on it at all? I'm sorry, Joe. Does it need the address?
You don't
On it?
need,
If
I don't
it's
think
up
you
to
need
your
the
house.
address. I would say the Essen Log Cabin should have it because that's where it came from.
Right.
But I don't think my address needs to be on there. I agree. I didn't
Okay.
think about that.
Gives you some real estate.
That would give more room to have it in larger, darker print then.
And it might
Would you-
also not putting the address on, because if you think about it, circa 1859, it was just the Hyman House pond or whatever it was, you know. Well, but I mean, as far as the post office was concerned,
Dutch House.
well, Dutch Hollow, or it might have just said St. Louis County, Missouri, too.
Actually, if I may, that was my suggestion. We're already saying Essen Log Cabins Historic Orville. Do we want to maybe specify the historic community?
Now that would be fine, yeah, Dutch, of being Dutch House. That would make more sense because you don't need the address because if you see it, you're already there. So, but probably Dutch Hollow would be good.
Would you like it to be historic Dutch Hollow? Or would you just like Dutch Hollow?
With plaque says hollow. I like that Hollow a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Than hollow, but the plaque, the plaque at Stovall says hollow.
So should we keep it consistent then, historic Hollow?
Historic Hollow, I think that's fine, yes.
Okay.
Maybe Dutch sounds a little racist.
It was.
Yeah.
The original guy, so if not, it's, but, you know, it's. Well, yeah, but, it, you know. Yeah, so.
Right, so what I would respectfully request then is authorization for the department to proceed with the feedback that we're going to request that the Hyman Scott House and Essen Log Cabin are a little bit heavier, darker. I'll send out a new round of proofs to this commission over email. But I want to go ahead and get it on the record that I can go ahead and order these once I feel that everybody is happy with them. And that would be with the historic Hollow instead of 3900 Tomorrow Trail.
To make
Yes.
a motion.
Oh.
I can't make one.
Sure, yeah. You do what you said.
I can handle that.
Is there a second? Kurt has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone opposed or abstaining? It has passed.
Fantastic.
So the next item is our work program.
All right, Madam Chair, members of this commission. Last month, we came before you with a proposed work program for 2025. At that time, this commission suggested that we order the work program in order of priority, so that we're really targeting our efforts towards, certain items on our work program. The department took that feedback and we did go through our list and we prioritized it. We also actually brought a couple items down to our inactive projects list, which again, doesn't mean they have to stay there forever, but it just kind of takes them off the workload so that we're focusing on what really needs to get done. So this evening, the department would ask you to discuss it amongst yourselves. And if we need to reorder any other items per your direction, we're certainly happy to do that. We would like to take your feedback at this time and see if we can come to a work program that everybody is happy with.
Do you want to go through each thing and then have us make comments after that.
I can, if that would help everyone.
I think it might.
Okay. Well, we made our top 5. Let's start with that. Our top 5 in order is our citywide historic preservation plan effort. We feel like that planning effort is really encompassing everything we do here, and it's going to set the foundation for years to come. So that's clearly number 1. Number 2, we do have the 10-year master plan update. And it kind of it's linked to our citywide historic preservation plan in that anything that comes out of that planning effort, it kind of needs to be folded into that master plan and vice versa. So that is number 2.
Right.
Yes.
Justice.
That will be good. Thank
That's
you.
great. I'm glad we have someone on there. Number 3, Essen Log Cabin. That cabin appears to be set to be erected this summer. So that's number 3. Number 4, given that we are currently in the midst of it, we would like to conclude our Pertner Park master planning process. And we're anticipating that will happen sometime this summer. Number 5, we did receive grants from the National Park Service for 2 research and nominations for 2 sites in Wildwood pertaining to the National Underground Network to Freedom. So that's clearly number 5 because, again, there's a grant associated with it along with some deadlines. Number 6, we did keep the Route 66 roadside park project phasing plan at towards the top. We've contacted SWT Design, and they are very interested in continuing that project with us. So I think we're going to just start with a ballpark number with them. Like, this might be feasible for 2026. What do you think? How do we get there? And just kind of have an initial discussion with them. So the department's setting that up. From there, we'll go forward more formally, but at this time, we're just scoping it out. Number 7, as you know, we did talk quite a bit about a Route 66 grant program. Director Bunish, did you have a comment you wanted to make? Okay. All right, we've been outlining a Route 66 grant program. We're still proceeding forward. Again, that's linked to that 100th anniversary for the Mother Road. So we feel like our Route 66 items are still pretty high priority at this point. And that, that in general is encompassed by number 8. Number 9, we're presently continuing to work on our United States Colored Troops historic marker. As you know, we started that project. We had hoped to finish it within the year. We had a really nice flow going, and then things stalled out a little bit once we got to the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. I'm continuing to stay in contact with the superintendent there. I'm trying to get an answer one way or the other. If we need to, we can start exploring other options. But we are trying to, pressure them into giving us an answer there. Our youth members have agreed to do a second term project, and congratulations to them because the city council did endorse their 2nd-year appointments. Number 11, and again, this will really depend on what happens in the next few months, but continue that partnership with St. Albans Properties and the J.P. Connell House. Number 12, partner with the province of Mary to potentially preserve and restore Mary Cliff. That is on the agenda this evening. Number 13, we do want to continue at least doing the background information for the African American Heritage Trail project. I've even put out the feeler already with our consultants about doing videos, just brief videos, blurbs about their projects and how that is associated with it. So we'll just continue doing that more in the background, some of the supporting work for it. Number 14, plan and hold ceremonial events for our new local landmarks that have been inducted on the Wildwood Historic Register. That's part of why we're proceeding forward with historic plaques. 15, attend training opportunities as possible. As you know, we have applied for a grant. So depending on whether or not we get that grant, we'll look at attending certain conferences. And then finally, I think this is the last item on the list. Yep, on the active projects list, we have our addition to the Memorial Tribute Program. We had talked about doing a nomination of Judy Somm, and so we may want to return to that this year, so we can go ahead and do that. Then I have, I think, 6 inactive projects, including our design and engineering of the parking area and trail connection to the Bellevue Farms property, continuing to archive documents from the city's incorporation, complete repair work along the frontage of Combe Park, and then install park identification signage. Number 4, develop and execute a planning process for the African American History Trail project. And again, we talked about doing that after we complete the citywide plan. Number 5, pursue the potential preservation of Mount Pleasant Baptist Church and Cemetery, which may follow after the nomination of the site. And then finally, 6, pursue National Register of Historic Places eligibility assessments and nominations when opportunities present. So we just took that off the radar again, just so that we can focus on those priority projects. And I believe Director Vunich did have a follow-up.
With your permission, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Madam Chair and members of the commission, you may wonder why 6, 7, and 8 relating to Route 66 have such a high ranking. Again, as Robin mentioned, 100th anniversary of Route 66 is next year. So obviously, I think it's important that we be prepared when 2026 arrives to recognize our portion, the original location of Route 66. Also, regarding number 9, which is the marker for the United States colored troops, I think sometime maybe early spring, we need to start discussing another location. Obviously, if we were building a structure or a building and it was something that would be very difficult to relocate, we need to get a final action from the state park system. Given that it's a base and a marker, I think we can get it somewhere, and if the opportunity arises in the future to relocate it, I think that would be appropriate. But we made a commitment to City Council and the descendants of the United States colored troops that attended a meeting at Babler State Park that we'd have it up. I think we need to make that commitment come to fruition. And last but not least, number 11, relating to the J.P. Connell House. Robin and I received a email from the representative of St. Alban Properties. The recommendation report from the Historic Preservation Commission will be at City Council at their next meeting in February. They are pressing to get the authorization to proceed with demolition. Thank you.
Yes, Steve.
If I may, number 7, the rehabilitation of buildings along Route 66. Wouldn't that really become part of the historical preservation plan, number 1? I mean, wouldn't this be part of what they would be doing?
Well, this is a city administered grant program that we're trying to develop versus the historic preservation plan, which is more of a vision of where are we going to go with how are we going to prioritize kind of this discussion, basically, what that's going to look like over the next few years.
Yeah.
So this is actually a concrete program that we've been discussing, and we need to get implemented if property owners are going to be able to utilize these funds in time for the 100th year anniversary.
Anyone else? Do we need to officially approve this work program plan?
If everyone is happy with how we've presently prioritized it, then yes, we would respectfully ask for you to adopt our 2025 work program.
Thank you for that.
So I was just wondering, regarding what Joe's saying about the 100th anniversary, would that not, does that not prioritize over the Portner Park project to try to get that done?
Ms. Quarterneck, I just think from the perspective that we've started it, it's underway. We have several members of the commission participating. It's in, yes, so that was the reason I assumed that it was an appropriate ranking or priority.
Got
Thank
it.
you.
All right.
Yes, Rob.
I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. Can I ask a couple of clarification questions? First one is it a simple matter of a recalcitrant superintendent at Babler for the location of the USCT plaque? Because there are ways around that. We can go to elsewhere in the DNR, Missouri DNR, to get the MOU for that location. Is it just the guy won't call us back? Is that really what it boils down to?
No, he was very supportive of this
That's what I thought.
project. Yeah, he's very supportive of the project. They have their processes, they have their levels
So
of
it's hung up in
review.
the bureaucracy. I see. Okay, well, that's very sad. The other question is my own personal edification. I chose to be in the hospital instead of go to the Fox Creek visit, and I missed a lot. But it mentions that there's a possibility of putting that on the or associating that with the Freedom Trail. Do we have some evidence that it was part of that Freedom Trail?
Yes, we had a site visit to that historic farmstead, and there was actually a trap door in the floor of one of the closets. So there was an underground cellar, I think, where it looked like potentially, human beings could have hid.
The stories were supporting it.
Yes, and then also there was a star out front and out back that he interpreted to potentially be signaling runaways as this is a safe place or a safe haven.
Yeah, that I have a dear friend, Annie Reekin. She's an archaeologist, and she sort of poo-pooed the notion that a friend who had a very old house, chains in the basement and so on and so forth, that it was actually on the let's call it the Freedom Trail, Underground Railroad, because they found a couple of cubby holes and hidey holes and so on and so forth.
Right.
She said every old house in this area claims to be on the Underground Railroad, and so I'm wondering if there's an official way to assess that, or is it just by general consensus it was part of the Freedom Trail, or how does that work?
It would take a lot more research to verify the likelihood that it's on there. Because I do think sometimes it's a little bit inconclusive and you just kind of have to make a final call. But and we'll get to this later in our agenda, but we have included a potential item in a letter to the owner that suggests that he might go through the research grant and nomination process that we're presently doing with some of those northern sites and get listed
Awesome.
on
That's
the
great.
Freedom
That's really
Trail.
great.
And we, of course, would help him if he was interested.
That's exciting. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe in the past, I've told you many of the items that are presented to you at tonight's meeting are also forwarded to City Council at their next available meeting for their consideration, typically as for information items. The work program is one that typically draws some questions, and the permission of the two council liaisons, I will be asking at that time if maybe Mr. Silverman, our legislative consultant, could talk with someone at MDNR about our memorandum of understanding and see if from that perspective, we can make some progress.
Any other question? Very exciting, a lot of work. What can we have a motion to proceed with this schedule of work?
Yeah, I'll motion that we continue with the schedule.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we continue with this work program in the order that it's listed. Is there any other discussion or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Anyone opposed or abstaining? It is passed.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
We have an update.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the commission, this particular item, obviously, we've talked at length about since our visit almost a year or more ago, approximately 1 year. Suffice to say that Marycliff, the residence, is a key asset from a historic preservation standpoint. And obviously, the department continues to engage the attorney representing the order in Dayton, Ohio. Two things I just want to mention tonight. First, the conversations continue, and they are being very patient with the city as it works through the different options. I will note, as the second item, this particular matter is on our Planning and Parks Committee of City Council's agenda for Tuesday night. At that particular meeting, the department would like to engage the members of City Council relative to the role of the city if it has one. So again, conversations are ongoing. They are clear, at least in terms of conversations of late, that the building is not something they can continue to maintain. And so they're hopeful that the city of Wildwood or some other entity can help in any way. So more to follow, but I just wanted to keep you abreast of what's going on. If there are any questions, the department would be glad to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're not to the review of zoning and thank you.
All right, Madam Chair, members of this commission, as we were just discussing, this commission did visit a very unique historic farmstead in Wildwood on Fox Creek Road last year towards the end of it. The reason for this visit being that the owner had petitioned the Board of Adjustment to permit this historic farmstead to exist or coexist, I should say, with a new single-family dwelling, which is not permitted by our zoning code. Ultimately, I'm happy to report the Board of Adjustment did take this commission's recommendation to go ahead and grant the variance to permit that historic dwelling to be an accessory dwelling to the new dwelling. One of the conditions of that variance request was that the owner submit an application to us nominating the asset to the Wildwood Historic Register. So that is actually conditioned as part of the variance request. However, we did discuss as a commission that the commission also wanted to make some suggestions to the owner for how else to protect the historic farmstead going forward, because he did indicate quite an interest in doing so. So the department has drafted a letter for your review this evening, listing 4 items that it recommended to the owner. One, we reiterated the need to list it on the Wildwood Historic Register and gave a little bit of an overview of what that process entailed. We suggested that he might consider listing the asset or assets, I should say, on the National Register of Historic Places. And we included an application for an eligibility assessment, if he would like to do that. We suggested that he protect the property with a historic preservation easement and gave him direction as to what qualified professional would be able to help him do that. And finally, we did suggest that he nominate the site to the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom program through the National Park Service. And we volunteered to assist if he would like to do so. So if you've had a chance to review this letter, we'd certainly welcome your feedback. However, if you are satisfied with what the department has drafted, we would just request this commission's authorization to have your chair sign it on behalf of the commission, and we'll get that mailed to the owner as a follow-up.
I have one question. The stove being removed from the existing single-family residence, which stove is that?
So as noted, the historic dwelling is going to be considered an accessory dwelling to the new single-family dwelling. And under the city's definition, that requires that it doesn't have separate cooking facilities. So while they are welcome to have like a hot plate or a microwave or something of that nature, part of how we enforce that definition is we do ask that they take out the stove.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And that's because they ideally are sharing a common kitchen area, like in the instance of a mother-in-law unit, because that's generally how the city orients that definition. Is like in the instance of where a family member might be staying in a close proximity to the main residence.
Thank you.
Did you?
And Madam Chair, and members of the commission, if you're ever asked at a trivia event about Wildwood zoning ordinance requirements, we also require a dishwasher to be removed.
Well, like I think what you just said was, it maintains the historic integrity of the.
Ed?
That just seems really crazy. They had just remodeled that whole kitchen. So I bet you that's a $6,000 gas stove in there. I mean, it's beautifully, that place is done very nicely. I think that's another one of the ones that just doesn't make a lot of common sense. I mean, should we make them rip the lights out? I mean, everything else that wouldn't have been there in the 1800s. I just always have had a problem with that. I do know that those rules for trivia, but the other question is there was a placard on the barn and saying it was historic something. Was that
Farm.
what it was?
Century Farm, yes.
So I noticed there was nothing. Was there anything in our letter acknowledging that? He seemed to be a little surprised how they all kind of fell into different categories. And I'm just wondering if reiterating they already have that, or is it valid? Does it even matter? I didn't see it in any of the write-ups. Just curious. Thanks.
Well, I guess the reason I didn't include it in the write-up was because we were giving him suggestions of actions he could take, given that he already had it. I didn't think to add it. But certainly we can acknowledge the fact that it's already a Century Farm through, and that program's run through the Missouri Extension. And I forget who I think they partner with the University, Columbia, Mizzou. On that.
I kind of think he's going to delegate it to his attorney to do it, but I just think it's one more thing that was already, he had little pieces of it there. It might be helpful for him to realize that that doesn't take the place, nor does it change any of this. It's just one more thing that should help him realize that it does have a lot of value from a historic standpoint, but just a thought.
Makes sense.
Linda?
Yeah,
Oh,
to be a Century Farm, it has to have been in the same
Yep.
family for 100 years.
Straight.
So if he's, I mean,
Significant.
we've got the Hart Farm. Yeah, it's a Century Farm, has been for years. But if he's not a direct descendant, or if his family has not owned it for 100 years, that Century Farm plaque doesn't mean squat.
Yeah.
Okay.
oh,
That's why I would ask.
okay.
We
Yeah,
always
if I
welcome.
may, the National Historic Register, what they're really looking for is a museum piece that would be accurate for that time, or a significant national event, or some famous national person had lived there. So that house even though it's much better done than my house, it's pretty much the same thing. It's been modified to be livable. So I don't think it would qualify or could qualify, be on the National Register. But I think it's a very good house to have on our local register.
Yeah, Hankin House didn't qualify because there's been too many changes and we're the birthplace
Really?
of the Keeler Post of the GAR, which was our hook.
Yeah.
But they turned us down because there's been too many modifications made to the original house.
Well, if I may, I did hint at that in the letter. So he is aware that the alterations to the house might, hurt his standing for that avenue. However, he does have some very much intact substructures associated with the residence, including that corn crib, the smokehouse. So I don't know. I wouldn't know if that could potentially, lend itself to give them more integrity for that purpose. But I figured we would go ahead and include it, guide him towards that eligibility assessment, which isn't quite as lengthy or time consuming as a nomination process, and just, let him figure it out.
Now, our own Wildwood Historic Registry is not that rigid, correct?
That's correct.
No, they can have a dishwasher.
Well, actually, what I understand, and because we talked a bit with the State Historic Preservation Office when we went to the recent CLG forum. And from what I understand is if it gets on the National Register prior to all the alterations and rehab, then it stays on the National Register and it's more acceptable for their purposes. But if you've already made all the alterations, then it hurts your ability to get on it. So I think that's probably the workaround there.
Can I ask
Yeah.
another question? I'm hopeful about the Freedom Trail connection, but and again, I didn't make it to the tour, but it says the cabin was built in 1871 and the Underground Railroad shut down in 1861. So it's 11 years. The building was built 11 years after the Underground Railroad was in operation.
Good point.
That is a good
So
point.
I think it'd be tough to prove unless there's a mistake in the date of construction.
Well, keep in mind, these dates are always estimated and, we don't know what might have existed there. Because I think they said that previously the smokehouse had even been like a residence.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. So maybe there's,
So
like, as I said, I'm very hopeful. I just didn't want to get hopes up.
right.
It was worth. So, thank you.
I mean, I think the purpose of this letter is just to give him a list of resources to explore on his own if he's interested, and then, let them make that determination. Okay, so if I may, it sounds like you would like me to probably add some verbiage regarding the Missouri Century Farm Program and what that is, what that entails, what that's about.
I just.
I think it's a positive.
I didn't see it.
It's null and void. It really is.
He probably.
Yeah,
That's-
if it
that's
hasn't
the
been in
point.
his family.
We don't
for
want to look stupid by
100
saying they
years.
sold this. If it hasn't been in his family, we should know that. And the same thing with the, right, and the same thing with the Underground Railroad. We don't want to be saying, hey, you should pursue this if we know the dates and so that's all. I'm just trying to save people having egg on their face, whoever it ends up being.
would you like to make a direction according to, would you like me
I
to?
think you got a handle on it.
Okay,
Be cautious.
Maybe you could say something about getting a more positive verification of the exact date of the building of the
Well, it's smokehouse. He made the smokehouse older and
It doesn't have a dishwasher.
I mean,
go
well,
there. I
the
don't have those.
the features that he associated with the Underground Railroad were part of that main dwelling,
Mhm.
so that kind of takes away from that what if. But you know, it wouldn't hurt, and what I could do is also just connect him with our contact with the National Park Service. He's very knowledgeable. He's always willing to jump on a Zoom call or a phone call with someone, and maybe he could just have a conversation with him, talk it through, and determine if it's even worth researching it further. But all of these programs, again, these are just a list of resources, like an initial step. There's a link to the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom. So I just see it as kind of that first step. It's, you know, let's feel it out, see what happens.
really encourage him to put it on the Wildwood registry.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a commitment to jump into a
Right.
months-long process. None of these are.
Any other comments?
Just a really dumb question. He's gonna build a nice home right across the driveway. If he doesn't get the stove and the dishwasher out of there, can he get his building permit for that new home?
First, we didn't require him to remove the dishwasher because I believe, according to the builder, Mr. Freeman, there wasn't one in that particular kitchen, so it was just the stove alone.
Oh, that was just a bit of information about the dishwasher.
Yes, it was just for trivia night, if it comes up.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Ed,
so-
I've got a dishwasher in my house. And a furnace and air
We
conditioner.
can award you that plaque anymore, Mr. Scott.
Yeah. Right.
So, Mr.
I
Marshall,
don't have anything now.
the dishwasher, that's your question, so mind asking it again.
My concern is he wants to build a new house. He's already done the grading over there. He was waiting to get approval to do that. So I'm sure that until the new house is ready for them to live in, they will be living in the $200,000 improvements that he did in this cabin. Does he by any chance get the building permits, have to take out that gas stove, or can he leave it there until it becomes occupied in his new $1 million home?
Yes, the department authorized the building permit for the new dwelling, acknowledging that the steps that the Board of Adjustment established based upon the recommendation of this commission would be done at a later date. Just to assure you that they will, there's two stages in the building permit process where the city or another entity, whether it's an agency or utility, can have leverage, so to speak. And that's when we do issue the authorization for building permit. And then the other is when final occupancy is requested. And explain to the builder as well as Mr. Shockley that you can have your stove and you can do all you would normally do. But by the time we reach final occupancy on the new dwelling, you have to comply with the conditions of the variance.
Thank you.
All right, so again, if I may request authorization from this commission to proceed forward with the letter and either as written or with a recommended revision. Well, after they build a new house, they can use it as an accessory dwelling, so someone can actually stay there. Yes, they
Sort of like a
could.
guest house.
There is options available to them, you know, through the city's processes. They could apply for a conditional use permit and actually rent it out as an Airbnb. They would have to go through that process though to do that. So they have a couple options.
And my recollection from the site visit, Mr. Shockley described a pretty large family with a number of children and grandchildren and relatives. And for the most part, I think he was just saying when they all visit the site, that would just be another location for people to stay, with the intent of obviously going to the main house for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or whatever the situation might be. No, actually, he described that his permanent residence is in Sunset Hills.
Yes. So what he can do and what he actually plans to do are different. But yeah, he's planning to use it as a family retreat, not a permanent residence.
So the intent of this is to make this house or cabin such that it could not be occupied as a living facility with a stove, dishwasher. A family could not live in there. That it would be a guest house for his relatives or somebody that would be
Well-
eating with him in his house. I think that's how I see it.
I mean, an accessory dwelling can be used as a full-time residence for members of the family. The intent is to keep it within the family versus having it be occupied by renters that have no family relationship. So that's the reasoning behind the stove and the kitchen is that it's one family using these facilities on the same property versus needing two completely separate residences. But they could potentially live there if they wanted to.
Okay, we're ready for a motion. Please. Is there a second? Any other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Anyone opposed or abstaining? As written.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments for the evening? Well, I would just like to say we are one busy group of people. My goodness, and it's so good to see things coming together. So it's not everything just kind of hanging. We are marching forward, and that's what we're all about. And thanks again for all of the efforts that every one of you put in to making things happen. And I appreciate it. The city appreciates it, and we're going to make a mark for ourselves and that we get things finished. And I think that's the important thing. So we'll be busy and then a little bit more busy, but that's what we're all about. So thanks again. And if there's no other business, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. It's been moved to adjourn. Is there a second? Somebody down here say second?
No.
Okay. Kurt wants to go home and eat supper. So, anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you again so much. See you next week again.